Hello, students! Welcome to our third lesson, focusing on the plot of Shakespeare's Macbeth. Today we will move on to Act 2, explicitly looking at the plot of scenes 1 and 2, marking the beginning of Macbeth's fateful journey into darkness. Next, we will analyse how Shakespeare builds suspense, then consider the character analysis of Macbeth through his transformation, and conclude with an examination of blood as a key motif. Let's begin! Our journey begins late in the night in what is commonly presumed to be a courtyard of Macbeth's castle. As Banquo and his son Fleance wander together after dinner, we sense Banquo's discomfort driven by his troubling dreams sparked by the witches' prophecies. Upon meeting Macbeth, they briefly talk about the witches and mutually agree to discuss the unsettling predictions in due course. As Banquo and Fleance depart, Macbeth is left alone and we see him wrestling with his conscience. A hallucinatory dagger appears, seemingly guiding him towards murdering Duncan. Instead of dismissing this illusion, he perceives it as a sign, pushing him further on his dangerous path. With an eeriness settling in, Macbeth heads into the darkness to do the unthinkable, to murder King Duncan. Meanwhile, Lady Macbeth appears, her mind racked with thoughts of the ongoing heinous act. She fears the Chamberlains, an old-fashioned word for house manager, might wake up at any moment and ruin their carefully planned scheme. Macbeth then reappears, his hands a telling tale of the deed done, soaked in King Duncan's blood. He gives a gruesome account of the murder, mentioning a haunting voice that foretells sleepless nights ahead. Macbeth's lapse in logic and nerve is evident, but Lady Macbeth is adamant that they need to stick to their plan and frame the Chamberlains. Too shaken to return to the crime scene, Lady Macbeth steps in, carrying out the rest of their ploy. As the scene closes, the dreadful knocking intensifies, reminding Macbeth of his bloody hands, while Lady Macbeth's reassurances only momentarily soothe his guilt-ridden conscience. As we can see, Shakespeare significantly heightens the suspense in these scenes. Starting with Banquo, his suspicion and caution towards the witches contrast with Macbeth's willingness and excitement. This raises an important question. Will Banquo become an ally or a potential obstacle to Macbeth's ambitions? This uncertainty generates suspense and curiosity about the course Banquo will decide to follow. Next, there is building suspense from what we know is about to happen, the murder of King Duncan. It's like watching a horror movie and knowing the jump scare is coming, but you're on the edge of your seat anyway. Shakespeare's genius is the build-up to Duncan's murder, through visions, whispered plans, and a descent into madness. By ingeniously leaving the actual murder of King Duncan out of the plot, it adds an air of suspense and dread because it was likely too disturbing and sacrilegious to show on stage. Let's move on to character analysis. Notice the stark transformation of Macbeth, from his initial hesitation to his eventual participation in murder. His internal struggles are symbolically represented by the hallucinatory dagger and the constant knocking, both hinting at an approaching disaster and subtly foreshadowing his eventual downfall at the hands of Macduff. Lastly, the recurring motif of blood in Macbeth is a stark symbol of guilt and the irreversible stain of one's actions, vividly painting the character's descent into madness. Blood signifies the physical act of violence and acts as a haunting reminder of the price of unchecked ambition and the psychological consequences. So, that's it for today's lesson, students. In these scenes from Act 2, we've seen that Macbeth grapples with his conscience and succumbs to a hallucinatory vision, leading him to murder King Duncan, while Lady Macbeth takes charge of covering up the crime, revealing both their escalating guilt and unraveling sanity. We have examined how Shakespeare builds suspense through Banquo's suspicion of the witches and the unfolding of King Duncan's murder. We then witness Macbeth's hesitation transform into decisive action to commit regicide. Finally, we considered how the recurring motif of blood symbolizes guilt in the play. I will see you in our next lesson, during which we will continue with the remainder of Act 2. See you then!